What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Bad Wrestling, No Holds Barred. This is a show where we dig up bad wrestling from the past and then bury it again, and sometimes do interviews. I am your host, John.
And I'm Jack Brinks.
And today we are bringing you one of those interviews.
All right, today we got a indie wrestler from NorCal. He's making his way up the ranks. Been following him off and on when I can get around to indie wrestling. He's been on WWE, works a lot of the local indies here up and down the states. We got Wise Guy. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. How about you?
Man.
Another day in paradise.
How you holding up during the global situation?
Well, I'm holding up, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a different type of lifestyle, you know?
For sure.
So where you you started out in Fresno, or you're from Fresno? You still live out there, or you live closer to the Bay?
No, I live in Fresno. I've been here all my life, unfortunately.
I hurt my back in a match in Fresno at the high school in Fresno. So because of that, I just won't let go of a bias about Fresno.
Well, there's a lot of people right next to you, man.
All right, so for the people watching and listening and your friends and all that might not know, when did your love and affinity for wrestling start?
To be honest with you, man, it started when I was about 2 years old, man. I remember very vividly, which is kind of weird because you don't really remember things as a child when you're extremely young. A lot of it is based off of what your parents bring to your attention. But I remember sitting on my mom's lap, man, watching Hogan slam Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, man, which is kind of weird because, you know, I was probably even younger than two, maybe a year old at the time. And I remember it, man, like it was yesterday.
That's the power of those characters in that time, right? Is that they could grab even like little kids. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Like your eye was gravitated to Hulk Hogan. And because I was the same way, like a really little kid, and Hulk Hogan caught my attention just as I was walking past the TV.
Yeah, no, he was the standpoint and turning point for me when it came to wanting to be a professional wrestler. I mean, he gravitated pretty much to everybody in the 80s and the 90s, and he carried me through, man. He definitely did.
So let me ask you this, though. How do you, because we, on this show, we kind of have a tradition of sort of bagging on, we call him 10-inch Terry now.
Not so 10-inch Terry. And Hung Hogan?
What's your current kind of view of Hogan? Are you still a Hulkamaniac?
That man can do no wrong in my eyes.
Okay. Yeah, everybody's on one side of that discussion.
I kind of get that. To be honest, and I know this is going to sound weird, I'm kind of the same in the same boat with Chris Benoit, where I was such a huge fan of his that I kind of block out the stuff at the end as much as I can, and I just try to remember Chris Benoit in the ring. Like, he was on if I could wrestle anybody, it was always, besides Bomber, it was always Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and AJ Styles. So I kind of get it, where some of that stuff just doesn't matter anymore.
Right, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, all these guys that are involved in the professional wrestling business, you know, past and present, you know, at the end of it all, they're human beings, and they're like us, and, you know, they're larger than life characters on TV, but, you know, at the end of it all, they're family men. You know, they go through issues and trials and tribulations just like all of us, and you got to accept everybody for what they are, their faults, their everything, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, word there. It's almost you gravitate towards them even more when they're human, right, rather than superheroes.
Absolutely.
You can what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of attach to them a little bit more. For your wrestling journey. So Hogan brings you in at 1 years old, 2 years old, where does the journey start for you as far as wrestling goes? Like, where did you train, and how long?
I ended up training at North American Wrestling, which was based out of Fresno. And at the time that I was trained by Mike Rain.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Okay.
going to ask if that was Mike Rain's promotion.
Yeah, and that started for me about mid to late 2005. So I was just scratching the surface at 18 at that time. So I started, I
Oh,
guess,
wow.
kind of early in a way.
Yeah, so you started like the day you were able to.
Right, exactly. Yep.
How was training down there? Like, who were your trainers besides Mike, or was it mainly Mike?
Mike, mainly Mike, but there were several times where Mike would bring in, guest guys to train us for a few days, which I admired, and he brought them in on his own dime. And when it comes to Mike Rain, I mean, I owe everything that I've ever accomplished in my career to Mike, because without Mike, I wouldn't be here. And Mike was the one that allowed me to fulfill my dreams and become a professional wrestler. And there were times where Mike had shows, and at that time, Mike was really hitting the ground running when it came to the independents. He was wrestling in Alabama. He was wrestling in Tennessee. He was wrestling in Texas. He was wrestling, I mean, all over the place. And he would still show up to train us right before he either got on a flight or had to travel across country. And I mean, travel across country a lot of times. And he would bring in guys like Bobby Hart. He'd bring in, I remember him bringing in Gangrel a few times to sit down and train us for a couple of days, which was, that was amazing to me, especially getting, freshly trained and seeing someone that I watched during the Attitude Era. I thought that was pretty cool. And Mike did a lot for us, and he was very hands-on and very, very patient, very patient. There's a lot of guys out there that train that aren't patient, and I've done it myself. I've trained some guys for Mike when he's unable to, and you got to have patience in this business. And I can definitely say Mike, he had some patience that I'll never understand.
Yeah, I've only had one interaction with Mike, and I did a show. I ran a show in Petaluma in, I think it was 2007, and Mike and Billy came up and they wrestled the Young Bucks, which I'm actually want to try to get that video up because it was an awesome match, and he was nothing but professional. So
Gangrel was on that show too.
Yeah.
What do you remember about your first match?
My first match was a triple threat match. And
what?
It was, yeah.
Your first match was a triple threat?
Yeah. So basically, Mike had a student showcase show at North American Wrestling at their garage. And I think I'd been training maybe 3 months. And he picked a handful of us because the first class that I was in, it probably had about 12 to 15 guys. So it was a big class. And he picked a handful of us that he thought was ready to have some matches. And my first match, like I said, was in the garage. And it was between myself, Brandon Pinion, who at the time was the internet sensation, and superstar Elliot Fox. And if anybody knows the NorCal scene, Brandon and Elliot became the Hearts of Steel.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So that was our match.
How was the match?
It actually was fairly good. It was really good. And I have that match somewhere, but we were in basketball shorts and Nike shoes, and clearly didn't even have time to get gear. And I think we had custom shirts made. I think that was about it. But it was basic and nothing too crazy. But I thought we did quite well, to be honest, with it being our first match.
So how was your, walk us through for people, because I don't think we've gone over this with anybody we've talked to, your prep for that match from before you walk through the curtain, and then what happens after you walk out, because that is a moment for me, for my debut. I don't have the video, which sucks. I really wish I did. But those memories I will forever be burned in my head of that before and after of my first match.
I mean, to be honest with you, what I remember the most was I was extremely nervous. And at the time, like I said, I was probably, I want to say maybe 19 and a half, give or take. And I had my youngest son there, and at the time he was like 6 months old. I had my mom came to watch me and my sister, and my mom, you know, she, if anybody's given me a path and always supported my dreams, being a professional wrestler was my mom. My mom, you know, it's great to have a parent who, you know, really encourages you to follow your dreams. But my mom was there and my kid, and then I just remember being super nervous, and it was hot. It was hot that it was like it was like during the month of June or July, and it was really hot. I was nervous. I wasn't sure how the crowd was going to react. I'm normally I'm a very shy and closed off person. The type of person I am, I don't like to talk to people when I'm out and about. I don't like to engage. I don't like to conversate with people. Not because I'm trying to be a dick. It's just I'm a very private person, and I just don't like to be around a lot of people. I'm very closed off, and I remember like, what am I going to do when I walk through the curtain and people are looking at me? That was like running through my mind, and I was really like paranoid, and you know, do I look stupid? And do I even look like a wrestler? Things like that were crossing my head and mind, and my heart was racing, and it was like an unreal feeling, you know. And after the match, I was like, wow, like that went really well, like that was really fun, and you know, I got praised backstage. My mom was super excited for me, and my kid obviously didn't know much at that time, but I was elated, and I was on cloud nine, and I was like, man, I can't wait to get back in that ring and hit the ground running. And this is exactly what I want to do. I made the right choice, you know, because a lot of times guys will have their first match, and then really say, maybe I'm not cut out for this. This isn't what I want. Because a lot of stuff like that happened in our first camp. A lot of guys had their first match, dropped out, and they were never seen or heard from again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a bunch of times. So you have your first match. What kind of happens in the weeks and months following? Are you thrown right into getting some bookings, or do you still got to stick around and train a bit more? What kind of happens following that first match?
I mean, we still stuck around and trained, and but I believe the following weekend I was booked for a show in Fresno at the fairgrounds, and I had this. It was weird too because I worked two different promotions. It was Pro Wrestling Live that weekend, the following, and then the weekend after was a promotion ran by Rick Luxury and the Commandos, which was known as Brawl in Antioch.
Yeah.
And the first weekend after my first initial match at the garage was Pro Wrestling Alive, and it was me and Brandon and Elliot again in a triple threat, and that's what Mike wanted to do. And the card was who was on the card that night was the Young Bucks, Roderick Strong, Rob Conway, who else was there? Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels. It was a list of people, and it was ran by a guy by the name of Brian White, who ended up stiffing everybody on their pay, and it turned out to be just a huge clusterfuck. Excuse my language, but that was my first wild experience of, oh shit, don't burn the boys, you know? Because I remember, I believe it was Frankie Kazarian that held a meeting with all the talent and literally grabbed the guy by the throat and told him, if you don't pay the boys, we're going to steal your ring. And at the time, that ring that they were using was Mike's ring. So it was crazy, man. That was my first live event experience outside of the training dojo. And the weekend after, I wrestled for Brawl, and it was the same match, me, Elliot, and Brandon.
I remember, this is funny because it's a flashback for me. So I kind of got out, the first time I got out of the business for a little bit was 2005, had a back injury. So I stayed away. I think the same weekend as that PWL show, because I remember them, and I remember that hearing about that incident. I think those three wrestled at APW, because I remember going to a show where Frankie Daniels and I think Styles were at the garage. So maybe it's a different weekend. But they were all up there. But I remember that story of him, the White, taking off and not paying anybody, and how pissed everybody was.
Yeah.
Did that change your impression of the wrestling business? Is that being one of your first step outside of what you knew at North American Wrestling? Did that change your view of things?
It didn't change the view on me wanting to continue down the path of being a pro wrestler. It did change the aspect of me, kind of coming to terms with myself and saying, it comes a point in your career where this needs to become a business, and it's more important to make good business decisions versus getting a booking. And what I mean by that is anybody can go out and get a booking, and of course I encourage guys that are up and coming, go get bookings, go get ring time. You're going to lose money the first couple of years on the road, and you got to grind your teeth. You got to keep it rolling. You got to keep those wheels turning, pound the pavement. But it got to a point where I told myself very early in my career that it needs to become a business, that as much as I love it, I have to make money, and that's what creates longevity, if that makes any sense.
100%.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can't continue to do it if you're always losing money. I mean, passion is one thing, but being broke and homeless is another.
Yep.
Especially when you got kids.
Right.
And I'm just gonna, on a side note, you can tell by looking at you that you take this serious as a business. So I remember when you started, because I remember your name, and did Pinion go by Brandon P. Net?
Yeah, it was BrandonP.net.
Yeah. So I remember seeing the names and pictures and stuff, and from when you started to now, you're a monster. Like, you're jacked.
Yeah.
So how did your training in the gym change? And did wrestling and the idea of, hey, this is a business, I look at myself as a business, did that change how you looked at nutrition and the weight room and the gym and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Or was it just standing next to Kratos?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. To be honest with you, when I first started with Mike, and from my first match to the moment we're speaking now, I think my first match I was maybe $140, maybe. And I'm not the tallest guy. I'm about 5'9", but it came to a point I didn't jump into weightlifting right away. I think I may have waited maybe 2 years, maybe even a little longer. But I looked around and I observed. I remember when I first started wrestling, because Mike used to run monthly shows at the Radisson Hotel in Fresno,
mm-hmm.
which is right across the street from the Sunland Arena. And at that time, that was hot fire, man. I mean, NAW had so much things going for itself. Mike had a stacked roster. They had those monthly shows at the Radisson that were drawing 300-400 people. It was pretty dope. But I remember looking around, and I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but I looked around, and this is something me and Brandon actually had talked to each other about years back during this time. I looked around and I saw a lot of the guys. They looked like they didn't give a shit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Not that they didn't give a shit in the ring, because of course everybody loves this that's involved. I would think so, but it looked like their appearance, they didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And their look, their persona, their appearance, everything. And I saw the way guys showed up to shows dressed, and I was like, what the hell? So I started showing up. Me and Brandon actually started showing up in dress shirts, slacks, ties, or whatever. And I remember, we're 6 months, a year into the business, and I remember a lot of the boys, the vets, giving a shit, saying, oh, look at these guys, they think they're superstars. And now, don't get me wrong, I never disrespected anybody in that locker room. I was always extremely polite and very hands-on. If I needed to help the guys out, whatever, I had no problem putting the work in. And Mike always taught us respect. If there was one thing Mike instilled in our minds during training was you respect the boys, you respect the business, you respect the crowd, you respect everybody regarding this situation in the business. And I'll never forget that. But I observed. So I looked at guys and I was like, God, man, that guy looks like he just rolled out of a trash can, and that guy looks like he doesn't care about his body. So as the years went by, I told myself, you know what? I'm going to get myself in the gym. I didn't know anything about weightlifting. I didn't know anything about fitness. And I didn't have anybody to teach me. My dad passed away when I was 17 years old, and my dad was huge into fitness. He worked out 5-6 days a week, 2 hours a day. And I remember as a little kid going with my dad to the gym and watching him, and he would, get me into lifting and stuff like that. And I told myself, I don't have anybody, so I'm just going to observe and look around. And I remember walking in. We used to have a Gold's Gym here in Fresno, and I remember, just pretty much I was, it was like walking into a situation completely blindfolded. But I told myself, I want to look the part. I want to not only look the part, but I want to act the part. And most importantly, when I walk through that curtain, I want the crowd and the boys to say, that's a fucking wrestler right there.
Yeah.
That guy looks like a wrestler. He looks like he belongs. And that's what I did, man. I busted my ass in the gym. I went from 140 all the way up to 215 down to 205, which I'm about right now. And I don't miss, man. I don't care if I'm sick. I don't care if I'm sore. And there's been plenty of times where, I just don't have the energy and I don't want to go. And there's times where, 2 Julys ago, I broke my tib and fib in the ring at Pro Wrestling Revolution. I snapped it in half, and
Jesus.
It was the worst pain of my life. And the doctors told me in Santa Rosa when I did it, you need to go see an orthopedic surgeon. I'm pretty sure you have ligament damage. You're going to have to take, an extended amount of time off. I said, I can't. I got bookings. And they said, how are you supposed to wrestle? I remember my foot swelling up the size of Professor Clump on Nutty Professor. And, I told myself, this happened in July of 2018. I said, I got to be in Vegas at Lucha Expo in August. How am I going to do this? And I broke it on a Saturday. That Monday I was in the gym with the cast on my crutches, and I never missed a day. I kept going.
God damn.
I didn't care. And I made Lucha Expo in August. I was throwing drop kicks. I was throwing calf kicks. I was getting slammed. Regardless of the pain, I wanted to do it, and I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be a part of it, and I wasn't going to let an injury slow me down. I'm sure I'll pay the price as the years go by and I get older, but I'm not the type of person to quit in this business. I'm frustrated at times, but it's just being determined. But to backtrack on that question, I wanted to look the part, man, and I got so many calls and from higher ups and people who messaged me when I did my first WWE match on 205 Live a few months ago. They said, you look like you fucking belong there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of touch on that, it shows, right? Like, so I've always kind of been somebody who pays a little bit more attention. I don't want to say body guys, but guys who look like it matters to them, guys who are respecting themselves in the business. Like you're saying, you can see it. And you can also see it when somebody looks like they just stepped out of a garbage can.
Right.
And to kind of touch on that. So a few months ago, I took my girlfriend to her first indie show. It was in Petaluma. And she's like most girlfriends. Her association to wrestling is only through me, right? And her main takeaway from it was the guys who looked like they cared and the guys who didn't. And so if a non-fan notices that stuff, then obviously everybody's paying attention to it. So I applaud you and I appreciate it. And you look like a fucking $1 million now. So
thank you
for your blood and sweat and tears. How is your relationship with WWE? I mean, I know that no one's really, everybody's kind of stagnant at the moment, but is that a growing relationship?
I mean, it's hit and miss, to be honest with you. To be quite honest regarding that match for 205 Live, I almost didn't get it. And what I mean by that is, everybody, if you're in this business and you're on the indies, and if you don't want to go to WWE, then you don't belong in this business. It's like playing football for an NFL team and not wanting to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go to the Super Bowl, you don't belong playing football. I mean, it's just that simple. WWE is the ultimate pinnacle when it comes to professional wrestling in my eyes and many others, but I almost didn't get that opportunity. And what I mean by that is, I'm standing there taking my physical, and Scott Armstrong approaches me and he says, "Hey man," he goes, "I got a question. How much do you weigh?" And I said, "I'm 203 right now." He goes, "Is that a shoot?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, I'd love to put you on TV, but I'm afraid that you may make our talent look like crap." I said, "Okay, well, I'm sorry, man." And I didn't say really like, "Oh man," I was just like, "Hey, you know what? I don't give a shit. It is what it is." And I remember texting my mom and my fiance and telling them, hey, they approached me to do a match, but they said that I looked good and I didn't want to, they didn't want me to overshadow their talent. And, they were both happy for me and stuff like that. But I took my physical, I went down to the ring, and they were like, "Well, it looks like we're going to put you in there." And it was a great experience. But I remember gearing up. I remember going to Gorilla. I remember standing there with the guys and looking around, and I'm like, man, I look better than a lot of these guys. And, some of the 205 Live guys were the same size, and everybody kept complimenting me on my physique. And after the match, they loved it. They thought my selling was great. And, Scott Armstrong told me, he's like, "You know what, man, you look like $1 million, bro. Like, great. So as far as my relationship with them goes, who knows? I mean, only time will tell, but I did go to the Performance Center in 2014, and I don't believe I was ready. I came in and they wanted me to be a referee. And at that time I was about 165, 170. And I had already been weightlifting, but I was doing some stuff that wasn't, I guess, correct, meaning, form or proper training methods. And I wasn't ready. So at the time I didn't deserve a job. So they made the right decision, but I'm hoping sooner rather than later I can get myself back to the Performance Center, because I will tell you this. There's a lot of guys that may look like me or even bigger. There's a lot of big guys in this business that are either body guys or just super heavyweights or whatever. But I can guarantee you this, nobody can move like me. I can hit drop kicks higher than the sky. I can do things that no one with the way I look can move, because a lot of guys that are, top heavy or built very well, they're one dimensional. They can barely hit the ropes. And they're very basic when it comes to their ring skills. Me, I can work with anybody, and I don't care who it is. It can be anywhere from J.R. Kratos, to God, man. I mean, I worked with Jake Atlas at Best of the West, and we had a great match. And now he's in NXT. But, I can work with anybody. I've worked with guys in Mexico that, didn't speak very much English, that we tore the house down. So, don't bet against me. That's what I can say.
So everybody's, like you said, everybody's dream is WWE, and anyone who's a wrestling fan and gets into wrestling and loves the business, that's the goal. Has your view or opinion changed with ongoing issues with WWE, plus the emergence of AEW, and New Japan seems to be coming up, and New Japan kind of goes in cycles of being a big deal and then kind of quieting down a little bit. New Japan's pretty hot. AEW is killing it right now. Do your goals change at all? Like, would you, opportunity wise, would you take another company, or is the end goal WWE?
I mean, I would love for the end goal in a perfect world to be WWE.
Mm-hmm.
But, if the opportunity was to present itself and AEW wanted to talk to me, obviously I wouldn't turn it down. I would definitely be interested. And likewise with New Japan, because at the end of the day, I got to think about what's best for myself and my family. And I want to be able to put my kids through college with professional wrestling. I'm not too worried about, I've never been money driven when it came to this world of professional wrestling. Never. I don't care about the money, but obviously in a perfect world, we don't need it, but we don't live in a perfect world and we need it. So As far as any of the other promotions, of course, I'd love an opportunity. But if I had to pick out of any of them, whether it be AEW, WWE, New Japan, All Japan, or any other place, MLW, I would love for it to be WWE. That's definitely and would be my first choice.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that says that WWE isn't their first choice is probably lying.
Absolutely.
To try to sound, kind of counter. Real quick, if Scott Armstrong tells you that you look like you may weigh more than 205, the correct answer is, how much does Tony Nese weigh?
And that was another thing. I literally was side by side with Tony Nese. Literally side by side with Gorilla. And we're about the same size, man.
Are you really?
Yeah. We're about the same size, same build.
Yeah, I'll be watching his matches and go, there's no way this motherfucker weighs 205.
Yeah.
So what's the current status on the indies, right? We're all on lockdown. I think you were supposed to be at a Revolution show in Santa Rosa next month that I'm assuming isn't going to happen. So how are you passing time while we're locked down?
I mean, it's a different lifestyle. Luckily for me, I'm still able to work out at a gym at a closed, discreet location, because that was the first thing that ran through my mind when they put up these lockdown orders. Where am I going to go to the gym? I'm freaking out here.
Yeah.
Where am I going to go to the gym, and where am I going to get my hair cut? Those are the two things that ran through my mind, man. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to get that situated with the gym, and I'm super grateful with that. But as far as time goes, I've never had so much time on my hands, to be honest with you. I've always been on the road. This past weekend I was supposed to be at the Cauliflower Alley Club, wrestling with my partner Nico, and something we've been doing for a while now, me and him. And then, like you said, the Revolution show coming up, and then we were going to be going to Mexico again for Dragon Mania, and doing a tour with CMLL. But it's tough, man. It's getting to the point that I can't even watch wrestling because it breaks my heart to watch it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's tough to watch these empty arena shows.
Yep.
Speaking of Pro Wrestling Revolution, so the show's coming up. Have you gotten any word from Gabe whether they've pulled the plug? We literally live a block and a half from the Vets Hall where that show's going to be.
Okay.
And I haven't heard a thing. So is there any word on, or are they still playing it by ear?
I think it's been postponed. I'm
Gotcha.
almost positive it has. Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask is, in PWR, you are in a group with Dave Dutra, and you are Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Do you, given the current, we're not going to get into politics and that kind of stuff, but the current climate the last few years, have you gotten any pushback from that group? I love it, because we all know as wrestlers and wrestling fans, there's always those groups that toe the line, whether it's the Russian groups and the French and the different groups that toe the political line. Have you gotten any pushback from people or at the shows or anything for that gimmick?
Pushback meaning heat?
Yeah. I mean, anything other than the normal normal heel
fan
heat. Heel heat, fan heat at a show.
Like for many of the boys or anything like that? Is that what you're implying?
No, because I know the boys would get it. I just kind of mean like personal life. Like we know how social media is, right? Like everyone has an opinion and loses their fucking mind whenever they see something that they find offensive. So have you gotten anybody that's pushed back against that Border Patrol character that doesn't really understand wrestling is a show?
I mean, to be honest with you, that Border Patrol character is really who I am in real life, to be honest with you. A lot of it, I love the gimmick. First of all, I have so much fun doing it, and I'm so grateful that Gabe has given me the opportunity to do it for, God, I think it's going on 5 years now.
Oh, damn.
as far as heat goes, I get some heat from it. You know, there's a lot of people that disagree with the way I represent the character and what I say on a live microphone, and some of my promos that I have put up online that have been through Pro Wrestling Revolution. But when people, you know, bury it or, you know, get behind it heat wise, what I do is I look myself in the mirror, I smile, and I give myself the good old Barry Horowitz tap on the back. Job well done.
There's not a lot of true heels left these days. So when somebody can stay in the pocket and take that heat and just understand that they're doing their job as a heel, yep. I love it.
Oh, and I'm a heel. I'm a natural heel, man. There's been plenty of times where I've been out with Nico, and you know, we do the Players Club gimmick, and he's like, "Oh, that poor little, you know, that poor little guy." You know, I'm like, "You're a heel. Knock it off." You know, I stand by that motto. You know, heels, no matter what, day or night, doesn't matter. You know, I love being a heel.
So when you joined that group, who was in it? Because I know if I got the timeline correct, when they started that, it was Oliver John, Derek Sanders, and was it just those two? And Brian Cage.
Brian Cage. Yep.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah. So that when did you come in, and who was in that? Whether we call it a group, stable, whatever. When you started.
When I started, like I said, I want to believe it was either in the tail end of 2014 or early 2015. And when I got in, it was myself, Derek Sanders, and Brian Cage. Oliver John had just retired, I believe, or was getting ready to.
Okay. So what is next for you? Like, what's on the radar? Wrestling comes back, all this bullshit ends, we get back to kind of normal. What's the next step? What's your next plan?
I mean, to be honest, to get my name out there more, you know, get on as many shows as I can, and you know, in different spots. And to be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to tagging with Dave Dutra. I think me and him are money, and we present a unique look, and we have a very, I guess, complementary ring style that we both have. And I think I really believe me and Dave, we can go places as a tag team, you know, and I enjoy Dave as a person. I think he's a phenomenal person. And I mean, Kratos is such a great friend for me personally. And the three of us, man, we're going to have some fun, and I can't wait.
Yeah, Dave is, I haven't seen him in years. I'd run into him, you know, backstage at some shows when I was doing some manager stuff, and when he was getting started, and I was super bummed when he got out for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then seeing him come back, because he's one of those guys like you that just is like that total package. They can work, they can cut promos, they got body, they got the whole thing. Do you guys tag outside of PWR?
No, we don't.
Okay. Is that your goal, to keep that as a team and kind of tour and make that a thing, or is it just kind of seeing where it goes from there?
I mean, honestly, I've talked with Dave on a personal level. I've expressed to him, you know, I love the concept of us tag teaming, of course, with Border Patrol, but outside of Border Patrol would be kind of cool because it's never been done before. And I like things when it comes to wrestling that haven't been done before. And he's agreed with me. And, you know, and I feel like me and Kratos are money. You know, me and Kratos have had phenomenal tag team matches in Mexico and in the States. And I think it's, I would love to continue to tag with Dave in other places would be great. And then, you know, I also have Nico that I'm tagging with, that I'm kind of putting under my wing and trying to, you know, get him better and polish him up as best as I can as well.
So who have been some of your favorite opponents throughout the years that you've wrestled?
I would say that I had a pretty good match with Jake Atlas back in May at Best of the West. I think one of my best matches that I had all year last year was with Kenny K at Best of the West. I mean, we tore it up. I believe that's on YouTube. And I had a great match in Gridley in 2018 in June for Revolution with Pentagon. That was a phenomenal match too. Man, I had some pretty good ones, man.
Yeah, Pentagon's. I mean, he's on top of the world right now. That's a huge thing to have on your reel.
Yeah.
So kind
Absolutely.
of
I had another good one with Super Crazy in Mesquite, Texas, a year and a half ago as well.
Super Crazy's still going.
Oh yeah, he's going, man. Great guy, nicest guy in the world.
Nice. That's awesome.
So before we get into the like our 10 questions, our go home questions at the end, what are some of the dream matches that you would like to see happen with you?
As far as dream matches go, I would love to work Dolph Ziggler, man. I would love to work Dolph Ziggler.
You know what? I can appreciate that because he does not get a fraction of the respect that I think he deserves.
I agree. He's a modern day Mr. Perfect, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is the definition of a super worker, and he's just sort of been squandered.
And I love the way he bumps, man. I think that he's a bumping machine.
Yeah, absolutely. So like he just mentioned, we've got our go home questions here. So this is 10 questions that we ask all of our interview guests. They're just sort of a little bit of like diving into the wrestling fanhood of the people that we like to interview. So we're gonna have Wise Guy answer these go home questions. You ready for that?
Let's do it.
All right. So number one, what is from either your own or somebody else's for all of these questions, anything in wrestling history, from things you've witnessed or said yourself or seen yourself, what is one of your favorite wrestling catchphrases?
Oh man, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Man, I would have to say, oh God, you guys are putting me on the spot here. Maybe God, I don't know. I mean, Jesus, that's so tough. There's not one that I think that has been I'm an 80s guy, man. I love 80s wrestling. I'm not of course the Attitude Era is when I was growing up and what I remember the most, but as far as the 80s go, I mean, it was the cream of the crop. Probably maybe the Cup of Coffee in the Big Time by Macho Man with Steamboat.
Yes. Yes. Where he kept randomly pulling out creams like a close-up magic show to
yes.
Eugene.
That had to be the catchphrase for me.
That's one of my favorite promos in wrestling history. Me and Gene's just baffled by where these creams keep coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what's a catchphrase or a line somewhere that you disliked? For me, the one that I always use as an example is Titus O'Neil's dog noise. If I go the rest of my life without hearing that, I'll be happy.
Oh my God. Let me see. Probably. Oh man. Maybe the Red Roosters ending catchphrase with the cock-a-doodle-doo. I thought that was just so just horrendous.
It was just so forced. And I bet if you ask Terry Taylor, he would agree with you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. What in wrestling makes you pop?
A really close and well done near fall.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Did you happen to watch Lance Archer and Dustin Rhodes?
I did not.
there was, so they're doing the TNT tournament, and Lance Archer is just murdering everyone he gets in the ring with for the last few months. And there was a near fall where Dustin rolled him up, and I stood up off the couch because I thought he had him, and I was like, "Damn it, they got me!" I love a good near fall.
When it's done right, yes, it's the best.
Yeah.
Not one of those ones where the ref goes down for the 3 and they pause because the timing's all fucked up. And
right.
They give it an extra 4 seconds and then someone kicks out.
Yeah.
Yes.
What in wrestling turns you off?
Guys trying to do things that they're physically not able to do. I think it waters the business down and it makes it look fake.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you. If you can't, don't.
Right.
The Miz attempted a nip up the other day on SmackDown and just completely landed on his back.
Well, we've all been there. I wrestled in my
100%.
I wrestled in my retirement match against Dana Lee here in Santa Rosa, and I was a little heavier than I used to be. And I remember going for a nip up, and I did the same thing, and I was like, "God damn it!"
What's some of your favorite entrance music?
Probably. Let me see. I think, of course, I'm a Hogan fan, so what I have to do, I'd have to say Hogan's one of them. Maybe the Disturbed Austin theme was a cool one.
Underrated for sure.
Absolutely. Twin Towers, of course. Jive So Bro.
Yes.
That's
Man, you are in
probably
the way
up there.
back machine.
Yeah, that's probably way back there. And I'm a fan of funny, just, rinky-dinky bullshit. That's the Rougeau brothers as heels.
Dude, that's our wheelhouse. That's why the show's called Good Bad.
Yeah.
What's some entrance music that you don't like?
I hated Right to Censors.
Oh God.
It was the shits. What else music do I honestly I was never a fan of Boss Man's. I wasn't a fan of that. What other one?
The Cobb County, Georgia one?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that one. What other one? Maybe, oh God, maybe Ric Flair's WWE theme when he came in 90, 91, 92. I wasn't a fan of that one.
Yeah, that in comparison to his 2001 Space Odyssey, it was pretty crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, what is some wrestling attire that you love?
I'm actually, when it comes to wrestling attire, I like body shit. So, I mean, like, I love Randy Orton's look. That's a pretty cool look. Triple H's look. What else? God, which other ones are pretty cool? I love Zack Ryder's look too.
Yeah. What about
and Kurt Hawkins?
What about some wrestling attire that you hate?
Let me see. Who do I hate? I hate tassels, man. I think it just looks like shit. Not a fan of anybody that wears tassels. Oh
man, you're killing me right now. I think we had some.
Yeah, I'm not a tassel guy, man.
I had a my first gear was I had what do they call, like, wrist gauntlets, and I had tassels on them because for some reason I just love the fucking tassel look. But yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste. I think we had a little technical difficulty. Might have lost John here. But all right, this one kind of gets people. So we'll see what we can do here. What is your best wrestling impersonation?
Oh man, I'm not good at impersonations. Oh, you know what? Probably maybe Ric Flair. Me and Nico have a Ric Flair impersonation that we do all the time because of the way he talks and stuff like that. I mean, we can go up and down the highways, especially Vegas, and we're just imitating Flair for everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of your Ric Flair?
Let me see. what's a good catchphrase that we usually, like I told him, I went into the gym a couple of months ago and I was like, hey, pal, have you heard of Bob Doo? And he knows right away what I'm talking about because the way Flair, has talks about certain things with, the wording and his verbiage and stuff like that. Oh, we love doing Ric Flair impersonation.
That's awesome.
Everybody does Dusty, man. Everybody does Dusty.
Yeah, there's a few that like, and I get it. It's easy. Everyone does Dusty. Everyone does a Hogan.
Yeah. Macho.
Macho. All right. And the last one is, what is your favorite good, bad wrestling moment? So for us, it's stuff that we cover on the show, like the debut of the Shockmaster or the Gobbledygooker or Mae Young giving birth to a hand. So what is a moment for you in wrestling that is so bad that it just makes you laugh?
Oh man, there's been so many bad ones. Let me see. That Shockmaster one is pretty up there too. That's probably one that I would have said. Let me see here. I gotta think about that one.
Shockmaster is one of the greatest things ever in wrestling.
To be honest with you, I think that one of the worst debuts and gimmicks of all time was fucking TL Hopper, man.
Okay. Give us a little rundown of that one.
It was just it just looked so like shit, like just garbage, man. Like just the gimmick, the worker, just a lot of it, man. It just didn't make sense. No theme music. It just reeked like failure, if that makes any sense.
For sure. Well, maybe we'll have to add that to our list and cover that on a future episode. We really appreciate you having on. Where can people having you on? I can't talk today. Where can people find you on social media, get in contact with you, bookings, that kind of stuff?
My Facebook is under my shoot name, which is Nick, and the last name is Ruiz, and it's spelled Ruiz. And then my Instagram is at WiseGuy1Nick. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I have a YouTube page that I just started. It's WiseGuy1Nick, and I only have a couple of matches up there. Of course, I intended to have more, but things got stopped. But there's a few matches that I put up that are pretty dope on there.
Awesome, man. We'll try to shoot a link to that. We appreciate you coming out today and coming on with us, talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
As always, guys, you can find us on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Give us a follow. Give us a like. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.